You know her, you love her. She is the most informative person on Epstein that I've ever met in my life. And I consider myself very knowledgeable on this subject. Whitney Webb.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How you
Nice
been?
to see you. I had a baby.
What?
Lots of things have happened. Yeah, he's I guess a little over 7 months old now. I wrote a book. I wrote 2 books about Epstein.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a crazy year. Even though you may not, have seen or heard much from me, I've been doing a lot of work, and had a lot going on. So anyway, I'll be back with more stuff, and books that are long, that are a lot to chew on for people interested in this subject. And I'll have a lot of articles about other stuff too coming out the next couple months. So I'm back. Woo.
Wow. One book is a lot. I've written one. I
Yeah.
wrote one book and it was a lot. You did 2? That's amazing, Whitney.
Well, it was supposed to be 1, right? So it's the Epstein book I've been working on since 2020. One Nation Under Blackmail is the title, and it ended up because of logistics and supply chain stuff in the extreme length. It ended up being it's volumes 1 and volume 2. So it got split into 2 books. Volume 1 is about 500 pages. Yeah, so it's detailed. I think my work is kind of known for that, though, like being really source heavy and being really detailed. And so basically what I'm doing is I'm fleshing out the Epstein network. So the whole what's volume 2 now, the whole second part of the book, which is chapters 11 to 21. Both volumes are like roughly the same size. That's all about Epstein and Wexner and the Maxwells, basically. And so I'm basically explaining in volume 1 the Epstein network, and tracing it back to its origins, which is really like more or less the beginning of the 1940s, and showing you all the illegal shit they did, including sex blackmail and sex trafficking of minors for blackmail purposes of the US government and all this stuff. Because it's really important for people to realize that Epstein was not an anomaly. I mean, I know you've been frustrated too by the mainstream media narrative that, oh, Jeffrey Epstein, the only bad billionaire, he's gone now, so all is fine. And you have to basically show that well, I felt it was important to show he's not an anomaly at all. In fact, in the world he was operating in, I mean, his behavior in terms of sex trafficking, very common. Very common. The type of sex trafficking that Epstein, what we know about that operation and the size of it was going on that same scale by people that ran the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, or BCCI, which was basically co-founded by the CIA and Pakistani intelligence, used for money laundering and all sorts of other illegal activities, financing of covert operations for several intelligence agencies and stuff. It collapsed in 1991 in a spectacular explosion. William Barr covered that up when he was Attorney General the first time, among other things. But basically, the head of that bank and a woman that basically is like the Pakistani Ghislaine Maxwell were taking minors to like shopping, teaching them how to behave to please elderly men, and they were being pimped out, some pre-puberty, to members of the United Arab Emirates royal family as far back as the 70s, going on for an extensive amount of time. And it's very likely through that Epstein in his earlier career, after he left Bear Stearns in the 80s, was directly working with this bank during that period of time.
What's the name of the bank again?
BCCI, or Bank of Credit and Commerce International. And that's just one example. Adnan Khashoggi himself, who's like a well-known guy that was an Epstein client linked to intelligence, arms dealer, Iran-Contra figure, many things. He was also known to have basically what it was referred to as a harem of women who were used to compromise people in government and or the private sector that he wanted something from, including most often for business deals, to butter them up. Right. The more you look at this network, the more people like this that there are. So I felt like it was really important to make it clear to people just how Epstein is not an anomaly, and also how many scandals in American history have a major undertone of sex blackmail to them. The McCarthy witch hunt, the Red Scare, There's sex blackmail there. Watergate, sex blackmail there. And there's other
Watergate.
scandal. Yeah, totally.
Where in Watergate? How was it Watergate?
Well, it's basically all chapter 5 of my book is about sort of the undercurrent of Watergate, because there was all this weird stuff about the break-ins, right? There was a lot of incompetence, and there's a lot of unanswered questions about motives and the conflicting reasons for the break-in, even from the people that committed the crime themselves. And it turns out one of the oddest pieces of evidence is this key that one of the plumbers that broke into Watergate had in his possession, Eugenio Martinez. And he tried to swallow it, actually, to hide it from police when they got caught. And it turned out to be a key to a safe of some secretary in the place in that particular area. And it turned out that she was involved in a call girl ring, and they were basically doing phone sex to senators and congressmen. And across the street in an apartment complex, they were recording those calls for blackmail. And if you look into that call ring, I think the chief White House counsel, I think that was his name, if I'm not mistaken, was basically getting married. It was engaged to, I think at the time, if not already married, to one of the key people sort of involved in the call ring. And they were going to be exposed because the guy that was running it was already in legal trouble when Watergate happened. And it had a lot of CIA and organized crime link connections. So basically, it's possible that one of the motivating factors for that sort of being found out is related to some sort of sexual blackmail operation that was ongoing at the time. But there's a lot of other stuff with, Watergate's a really complex thing. I wasn't expecting it to be that complex when I started writing it. And this is how the book gets really long, because you're like, oh, and then holy shit, there's sex blackmail here too, So it's a very common theme in American politics. It's really stunning. So anyway, that's how volume 1 ended up being really long. But I think it's really important because we need to understand just how long our government's been compromised in this way and by whom, which I think is also really, a key part of the equation.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I can't wait to get copies of these. How do I get copies of these books?
Okay, so the best way to get it if you live in the US is through the publisher directly, because boo, Jeff Bezos, but also other reasons. And the publisher is Trine Day, Trine Day. And there you can also, if you want both volumes, you can buy for a bundle price that's significantly cheaper than buying them both separately. Though volumes 1 and 2 will be available as one ebook, right, in one audiobook. So, if you don't want to pay for the 2 physical copies, or that's out of your price range, I would recommend going with that. Because I'm not really in this to be like, yes, I need all the royalty. No, it's not like that at all. I only get 30% of the proceeds anyway. It's basically, I just wanted this information to be out there, and I wanted to have a conversation about who Jeffrey Epstein really was, who Ghislaine Maxwell really was, what they were really doing, and the implications of that for the government, and how also the government is incapable of investigating itself.
Oh, absolutely.
About this stuff. And what that means, right?
It supports several things. It supports the interview you did a couple years ago with Maria Farmer, where she said Epstein was middle management, and
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, he's middle management, and this has been happening for a long time. And yes. This is, and how Les Wexner was called the head of the North American snake.
Well, that was her name for it. But yeah, obviously Wexner is a big fish. Yeah. In a way that Epstein is not.
He's bigger than Epstein. And it's the reason why, and because he's got so much more power, you see why he's almost never mentioned in any of this. But yeah, totally. I wanted to bring you on specifically, and thank you for telling us all this stuff about how your book goes into detail. And I would encourage everybody who watches my show. I have an Epstein playlist. I would encourage you to read these books. I'm going to read these books because it'll blow
your mind now. It'll blow your mind.
Well, it also supports what Stanley Kubrick said. He goes, "The world is run by pedophiles." He said that, and that's when he made the movie Eyes Wide Shut. That's basically what Eyes Wide Shut is him saying, "This is what's really happening. These powerful people are horrific creeps, and
Yeah.
and it's all for money and power and creepy sex and whatever the hell else. So but I wanted to bring you on specifically to talk about this real quick. So let me just bring this up, and I'm going to cut this into a separate segment. So I'm going to put you off screen and then bring you back on. Okay.
Okay.
I know it seems elaborate, but here we go.
Well, just so you know, I have to go in 20 minutes. Okay.
Got it. This segment will be less than 20 minutes.
Okie dokie.
Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching The Political Vigilante. We have been covering the Epstein case for now 3 years. And one of the things we keep talking about is Ghislaine Maxwell got 20-year sentence. She just got moved to a low-security prison in Tallahassee, Florida. No photos or videos of any of that. And no one is asking this question except this one little article in the Los Angeles magazine that I found online. Ghislaine Maxwell in chains. That's an over-exaggeration. She's probably playing ping pong right now in slippers. What Maxwell may know about Jeffrey Epstein's John Doe's. The secret of what happened at Jeffrey Epstein's homes between her nubiles and many powerful men will sit with the jailed socialite in a Tallahassee prison. Will she ever squeal? And I want to talk about this, and because there's a little glare, and fix that. I want to talk about this because we keep asking, how come none of her names, none of the people connected to Epstein? We saw the FBI when his penthouse in New York City was raided in the summer of 2019 when he was arrested. We saw all these boxes and hard drives and files, but where is any of that information? We're hearing none of it. And I wanted to bring on the show. We've had her on numerous times. She's I would call her an expert on the Epstein case. Whitney Webb, who's got 2 books out. Hello, Whitney. How you doing?
Hi, doing well. Thanks.
So you've covered this extensively. You have literally 2 books that was going to be one book that then became a 2-volume series because you went into so much detail. But specifically, and we've had you on the show before, and you and I have even just talked off camera about all of this. And what is so curious with the Maxwell case, I mean, I've talked about, you gave me the information, Judge Allison Nathan, she's obviously works with the Quill and Dagger. She's was appointed by the elites. You've got Maria Comey was the prosecutor who just kind of went, oh, I guess we can't have any more evidence. Like she just sat by and let that happen. There was only 4 witnesses that spoke. I remember in the Larry Nassar case, there was 100 victims spoke, but only 4 could speak. And what has happened? So Jean-Luc Brunel was arrested. He hung himself. No talk or mention of that. No photos. No nothing. He again probably hung himself with a paper T-shirt like Jeffrey Epstein did. Maxwell was on the day the SCOTUS memo was leaked of May 2nd or 3rd. That's the day Judge Allison Nathan said, "I'm going to limit the amount of time she could potentially be sentenced to." That happened, of course, and then. Oh, crazy. She gets moved to a low security prison and there's no photos or videos of any of it anywhere.
There's never been photos of prison Ghislaine. Well, I guess there's been some alleged ones, like the one that came out where she's like, I have a black eye. And it was like a little bit here. And she was, I don't remember why she said the prison guard, something maybe, I don't know.
And the key thing here, and this is what you talk about, and this is why I really want to get what based on all your research, is that they've always wanted to seal off.
Yeah.
They want to just make it seem like, oh, Epstein, we got the one bad guy. Maxwell was his secretary. We got him. They're good. And it's so obvious because also in December of last year, during her trial, 118 pages of flight logs were released. In that, it showed Trump had 4 more flights on Epstein's plane. There was originally only 1. Now there's a total of 5. And what was so curious is MSNBC and CNN didn't go nuts with that information that you would have thought they would have crucified him. But when you go after him, then it opens up everybody else. So, and if Maxwell gets appeals, my theory is if she wants to go to appeal, and if she gets acquitted, that'll happen the same day, like Trump gets arrested or Biden has a heart attack or some crazy event will happen. You know what I'm saying?
If it happens that way, yeah, sure.
How do you see all this? I know you've been tracking it. How do you see this?
Okay. So remember that, Ghislaine Maxwell's indictment deals with stuff in the 1990s. So it's supposed to be written so it's out of scope of the sweetheart deal. And so the sweetheart deal itself not challenged, which means all the other co-conspirators, Sarah Kellen and all of those guys, well, can't touch them still. And the important thing too is that in terms of the scale of the sex trafficking operation, it grew significantly with the beginning of the early 2000s, which is where you see Prince Andrew enter the picture in a big way and all of that, right? And that's part of the sweetheart deal beginning then. So these are very specific cases in the 90s, and most of Epstein's accusers, there's very few that predate 97. And if you look at the indictment, if I'm not mistaken, it was like 94 to 97 is the range that they were going with here. In addition, the indictment itself states that the victims that are in this suit, some of them, I forget exactly how many, accused Ghislaine Maxwell of sexually assaulting them. She wasn't charged for that, right? Which you would think would be a bigger crime, technically. And, you know, it was mostly about transporting minors across state borders for sex and stuff like that. It was like very specific stuff. It could have been, in my opinion, based on what we know, a lot more extreme, what she was, you know, just in terms of setting up the indictment. And that's the prosecutor side, right? That's not the judge. That's not the defense. That's like the people that are like, we're going to nail Maxwell, coming up with that, right? But I think the key component there is that, you know, all the other people are still off the hook, basically, because of the sweetheart deal still being in force. So beyond that, I think, you know, the fact that she's been moved to Happy Days prison.
Disney prison.
Yeah. So, I mean, remember how Epstein's prison sentence was too? He like was allowed to go on work leave and like go home for like part of the day and all this stuff, you know? So, I think, Maxwell agreed not to squeal, basically. And that's why she got sent there. Otherwise it would have been like, well, did you see what happened to Jean-Luc in France? You know, I think it was pretty clear. And I mean, let's keep in mind too, a lot of people are like, oh, we don't know how Robert Maxwell really died. But what matters here is how Ghislaine Maxwell thinks her father died. And she thinks her father was murdered by her words, Mossad renegades working with Sicilian contract killers. So
those
I
are
think
her words.
Yeah, it's quoted in the New York Post in an article that I think is from 2000 or 2001. So this is even before Epstein was like infamous, or she was infamous for anything. And that's her talking about her father's death. And even her siblings admit, like, yeah, Ghislaine totally thinks he was murdered. And she would know because she was the most involved with his activities at the time. And when he died, she was the child that came onto the yacht and shredded the documents.
Yeah, this very much seems
right.
Yeah,
so I mean, she'd probably know.
There's the rumor is, is that, you know, she has this so-called kill switch that if she goes down, I doubt it, but like it's all going to go, all the information is going to go out, and so she probably doesn't have that because I think she'd be.
She works for somebody, yeah, and so that kill switch would be with that somebody, not with her, you know.
And
that's what I think anyway. I don't think this was just contrary to the mainstream media narrative. I don't think this was just Epstein and Maxwell planning a big thing all unto themselves, sealed off from other elites or powerful people.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's why there's no footage of her. There's no mugshot. I mean, people would always say and the claim
Epstein's mugshot didn't even come out till after he was dead.
Right.
The one that was taken in 2019. Right.
So like, I don't like getting tinfoil hatty. I just don't. But you could surmise that they're all still alive, hanging out on some island somewhere, and we haven't seen any bodies or mugshots or,
So when you're bringing in the whole intelligence thing to this stuff, it's all a big question mark because the CIA, Mossad, whatever, they get away with literally anything. So, I mean, who really knows? I mean, I think Epstein's probably dead. You know, and so, you know, some people are like, oh, blah, 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 Whitney, you're crazy for even like entertaining the possibility. The point is, I don't 100% know because when he died, the camera feeds were cut and there was all this like suspect stuff. So, I mean, really no one actually knows what happened to the guy technically. You know, so I don't want to gatekeep and be like, I definitely know, but I think it's most likely that he was or Brunel was too.
Because
And
they were
Maxwell.
liabilities. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the way the mob does it. If a mid-level guy gets busted
Sure.
and they're worried he's going to squeal, he gets taken out. I mean,
And
that's
remember, Epstein was busted a first time and got heavy protection. And a lot of times, history, not just for people like Epstein, think about, banks, for example. I mean, there's histories where banks have gotten into trouble one time and they've been bailed out once, but they don't bail them out a second time or stuff like that. I mean, it's hard to like continually risking that big cover up over and over and over again. As if it's the same entity or person, it just becomes easier to get rid of them. And so what I pointed out at the end of the book is, I and we've talked about this before, how there was this move from the sex blackmail in like the early 2000s and all this stuff, which is the years that most people focus on for Epstein. There was a move into Silicon Valley. Epstein's courting of Edge, Ghislaine Maxwell going to these Kleiner Perkins, which is a major Silicon Valley venture capital function, her getting married to Scott Borgeson, who like runs a tech startup that's funded by Google's Eric Schmidt. Her hanging out with Jeff Bezos. Why does Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Reid Hoffman, Elon Musk, I mean, pretty much every head of a major big tech company has some sort of Epstein or Maxwell tie. Yeah. So why is that? Well, I think they knew, because the government and the intelligence agencies knew that the future was electronic blackmail, because then you don't have to invest money in a trafficking operation and maintaining residences with pinhole cameras. You don't have the liability. You can just find dirt on someone in their digital footprint. And, you type their name in the right database and you have all the dirt on them in the world, because we're all being illegally surveilled by the NSA and the government. And so they can just blackmail everyone whenever they want. And so that essentially means that people like Maxwell and Epstein stop becoming assets to protect, and they become liabilities because they know a lot of stuff, right? And so they don't need people like that anymore. They needed people like that for several decades, as I point out in the book. I mean, this practice goes back a really long time, and it was really first brought into its own by organized crime, and then organized crime teams up formally with U.S. intelligence in World War II out of wartime necessity, and then it continues after the war because it's great business. What do you know, right? And so anyway, with the fact that we all have smartphones and the digital revolution and all of this stuff has also changed forever the nature of blackmail. And so they don't need people like this anymore. They're just liabilities at this point.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, since, we know, I mean, we've talked about Eric Schmidt before. I mean, Google has been doing data collection for the intelligence community since, I think, as far back as 2010.
Amazon. Yeah. Enjoy your Alexa. It's probably going to blackmail you someday.
Yeah, probably. So, you've ever like been mad alone in your apartment and screamed and said something awful just to, they're going to record it and put it out there.
But it's already happened with Alexa, right? They like had to admit, I think that they've recorded people on several occasions and like stored it.
Yeah.
Like fights or people, getting it on and stuff.
Sure.
So, I don't know. People willingly invite that shit into their home. So it makes you really easy to blackmail if you're the CIA. I mean, when, what's his name? Petraeus was CIA director. I think it was like 2012. He was like, your kitchen appliances are going to spy on you for us. Like the smart fridges and smart whatever.
Yeah.
It just means we're smart and you're dumb and we're spying on you, and you think it's high tech and you're a schmuck. That's basically what he was saying. Mm-hmm.
So do you think Maxwell is eventually going to slip and fall on a noose? Or
I don't think so. I mean? Or they wouldn't have moved her to country club prison. I think if it was something like that, she probably would have stayed in the MCC or whatever it's called in New York. Like Epstein, well, that's where Epstein was killed, right? So these other more country club prisons, it's harder, I think, to do that kind of stuff, because that particular prison where Epstein was offed or whatever, I mean, people there, it's well known that it's like really corrupt and it's really easy to pay off the guards and get stuff smuggled in and all of that stuff. I don't necessarily think that all prisons are that easy. Right. I'm not an expert on the prison system, but I have a feeling that country club prisons are a lot more like, it's a different kind of world than some notoriously corrupt, NYC urban prison.
So that's
Just
that
a
makes
hunch.
sense. That's the
That's
deal.
what I would think. I think what's likely is once you get involved in like country club prison, it's pretty clear that I think she could even get let off early for good behavior.
Yeah, and is
Someday
she
or
going to
something
hang
like
out?
that.
Yeah, she's going to hang out in somebody's yacht during the day and then come back for,
Work
that,
leave. I don't
yeah.
know. It could
Yeah.
happen in a couple years, and I mean, who would know? Because the world will be exploding, so it's not like people will be noticing.
Yeah.
And that's sort of how they've done it with this case. Like the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. How much trial did that get? Coverage did that get, right? And how much attention did this trial get?
It was unreal. They were happening.
Where
at
were
the
the
same-
questions about Jean-Luc Brunel's death? I mean, people are like, "Oh,
None.
suspicious, wasn't that?" And then it's no more questions.
The mainstream media literally put Brunel's death on the ticker across the bottom. That's how I was like, wow, they didn't even mention it. They just was like, Julie Brunel committed suicide in prison. And then literally just like the next line was like, a cat jumped into a
that
big
was
thing of pudding.
supposedly because of a French investigation. We know very little about Epstein and Maxwell's activities in France, except that there was a residence that they maintained there in Paris. But Jean-Luc Brunel was very involved in Paris modeling, and was actually the subject of, I think, a 1989 60 Minutes expose of how he was basically engaging in the behavior he later enabled Epstein to do that far back. And still big people in the modeling industry like Faith Cates were like, I'm going to team up with that guy, even though he was just exposed by 60 Minutes and accused of drugging and raping girls and stuff. I mean, it's insane. So like the French investigation, I haven't heard anything about that now that Brunel's dead. Sounds like it was closed to me, as far as I can tell. I'd love to be wrong about that, but it seems sort of like, oh, investigation's open. We're going to nail you, Brunel. Oh, you've been silenced. Oh, our investigation is also coincidentally silenced and gone.
I haven't heard anything about Peter Nygaard as well, because they all got arrested.
No,
Maxwell, Brunel, and Nygaard all got arrested around the same time. And then Nygaard, nothing. I've heard nothing.
Yeah.
It's yeah. So and obviously, and for the audience, our audience should very much know these ties that you've discovered, I've discovered. There's always like the fashion industry, banking, the intelligence community. Those are like the main three.
The banking stuff, I should, since I only have a couple minutes left, the banking stuff is really big. I think Epstein's financial crimes are on the same scale as his sex crimes, for sure, 100%. This guy is a major financial criminal, and that's why it's so crazy that all of his involvement with the Clinton White House in the 90s based around insane illegal fundraisers. And then he gets brought on to plan the Clinton Foundation for Bill Clinton.
Oh.
So why would you get a guy who claims to be a financial spy who hides looted money for powerful people in the 1980s and plans one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in US history with Stephen Hofferberg at Towers Financial? Why would you recruit him and have him be a major figure in several of your major fundraising campaigns that later get investigated by Congress and covered up by the Justice Department? And then why would you have him set up your philanthropic foundation after you leave office? And the same thing for the Gates Foundation, too. He was really involved with that as well. And lots of billionaire philanthropic foundations, like Leon Black's family foundation. He ran it, the Wexner Foundation. He was a trustee there, involved in numerous other philanthropies. So, I think we should be asking a little bit about how deep those ties run. But no one wants to talk about the financial stuff or the banking stuff. And think about it. The only criminal case involving Epstein after his 2019 arrest where like someone was like innocent was popped off is the Deutsche Bank case about Epstein. And it was the judge's son was shot. And I guess it was supposed to be her that was shot. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, oh, that's also another suspicious death that went nowhere. I guess we can't talk about the Deutsche Bank connection to Epstein. Or how he basically collapsed Bear Stearns single-handedly.
It's one of these crazy stories. The more you
those are insane financial crimes. Think about it. Major Ponzi scheme, major involvement in the most illegal fundraisers the Clintons have ever done, and the creation of their political slush fund. right? Personally popped the Bear Stearns bubble, which essentially leads to the 2008 economic crisis. That's just the 2008. I'm like, we know very little about his activities in the 1980s when he was admittedly working in like offshore banking and illegal money laundering networks and stuff. Right. So I think the financial crimes I don't want anyone to look at. And that's why the Deutsche Bank stuff is like, ugh, for sure.
Yeah, because then there's way more people that are implicated. And the financial crime too is it's actually easier to prove in terms of hard evidence, because the video files of the assaults and with the children, someone those are hidden somewhere, but we can probably go online and find the financial crimes right now. You know what I mean? And that's why they want that hidden.
But there's a lot to think about just with the financial stuff. You know, what does it mean that a guy that was sex trafficking linked to intelligence after he gets busted the first time personally pops the economic like bubble in the US and almost collapses the economy?
Epstein, I know you got to go, but Jesus, how did he personally pop Bear Stearns?
So there were two funds that were in trouble, and basically Epstein went there and demanded money out of it, even though he knew that they were like going to fail if he did that, and he did it, and then it collapsed. That's the short version. I mean, it's a lot more complicated than that. There's a guy that wrote about it. I forget his name. I'm really sorry. I've forgotten his name like 2 times. But I can send you the article later if you want to read it. It's called like, Did Jeffrey Epstein Initiate the 2008 Financial Crisis? There's a lot to think about there in the context of like the intelligence ties and his past financial activities. Very
send me that article
stuff.
Absolutely,
yeah, for sure.
That article.
I mean, it's mental, because think about it. It's a huge wealth transfer, and Epstein's whole network in the 1980s was intimately involved with the savings and loans crisis. A lot of people at the Drexel, Burnham and Lambert Bank, which were really like responsible for that junk bond like explosion and all of that stuff, that was a huge wealth transfer. $600 billion at the time and in the 80s going into the hands of these guys. They take over corporate America. And people at that bank are people like Leon Black, Ron Perlman, people known to be associated with Epstein. And it was run really by like Michael Milken, who's now a philanthropist now, the Milken Institute, if you've heard of it. He's like a convicted financial felon, but got pardoned by Trump. No, I think by Trump, actually. Yeah. Fun crowd. Anyway, yeah, the financial crimes are very substantial, and I think people need to start poking around in there. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll start. Send me these articles. I'll start, because I've done no videos with ties to the financial world on Epstein. Very few. I mean, I covered the Deutsche Bank thing, but I really haven't gone.
Because it hasn't been the focus, right? But I think it's time that people start to look at it a little bit, because it's very significant. I mean, Robert Maxwell, what is he best known for before the Epstein stuff exploded and being Ghislaine Maxwell's dad? Financial crimes, stealing pension fund money, and a bunch of other stuff, right? That's what these guys do. I mean, they're serial looters, right? And they're also sex traffickers. But I mean, you know, there's a lot of conversations that need to be had about Epstein, and there's a lot about Epstein that is going to keep coming out, and it's going to be really clear, I think, over time, that sex trafficking was just part of what was going on here, and that there's a much larger network that enabled him that's still, doing the same shit. You know, he's like you said earlier, middle management. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we're heading into another recession. We're in a recession right now. We're going to have probably some other financial collapse, because nobody regulated Obama, Bush. None of these people regulated the last financial crisis at all. And so we're going into another one. Talk about financial stuff a lot, the bubbles that are being created. That's why I encourage my audience to buy Bitcoin. And I have for 2 years, because I'm like, get ready, because the banks are going to go belly up. And now that we know that these awful assholes are involved in this,
it's a wealth transfer.
Right.
These networks have been taking your money and giving it to themselves over and over again. Why do the rich keep getting richer? Why during COVID-19 did like the billionaires get like super, super, super wealthy and everyone else got poor? And why did that happen in 2008 and all of these other things? And why were there never prosecutions for the people that caused, those economic crises or policies?
Wow. I mean, you're right. 100 new billionaires.
Yeah, think about it. And this has been going on for how many decades now? How many crises have happened in this exact same pattern, involving the same banks and the same people? I mean, we're being taken for a ride, dude. We're being totally looted by a bunch of people who fuck kids. Anyway, I have to go.
No, that's
Sorry,
that's how we
like
end the interview on.
Yeah.
We end it right there. Tell everybody the name of your book again and where the books were and where they can go get it.
Okay, so my book is One Nation Under Blackmail, volumes 1 and 2, and you can buy it directly from the publisher, Trine Day, Trine Day, and also any other places where books are sold, really, including Amazon. And if you're in Europe, we're looking for some more local distributors, so you don't have to worry about international shipping costs, which have gone way up. But there will also be an ebook and audiobook version.
Whitney, thank you so much for taking time to come on the show. I know you're tired. I know you've been doing a lot of interviews, and it's great having you on the show. Once again, every time I think I know about Epstein, you come here and just blow my mind away.
I mean, it's crazy, and it's going to get crazier the more stuff that comes out, and the more people who actually start digging on the stuff that they've been trying to keep us away from. Also,
well. Send me those articles. Thank you for coming on the show, Whitney. And we really, really, really appreciate all the work that you're doing. So support what Whitney's doing, but everybody hit the like button, follow her on social media. Whitney, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.